Welcome, everyone, to the podcast where we geek out about B2B marketing and all the important things and factors that go into it. And today we have a very special guest, Michael Baer, who's a fractional CMO, and he works with all kinds of ABM B2B marketers. And he's got a lot to say. In fact, one of the things we're going to talk about is what he wrote and why in his article about just calling your content marketing thought leadership doesn't make it so, and why his opinion that content in an ABM B2B world is like oxygen to the business. So, Michael, I'll let you take it away.
Well, thank you very much. And it's great to be here, Steve. So I think what you're saying is, what the heck is a fractional CMO, or what is a full C-suite uh, fractional consultancy? So my background is I've had over 30 years of marketing experience. I've been a CMO at a variety of B2B based companies, and have pivoted to be a fractional CMO, which means uh, I'm called upon by companies at different stages of their trajectory to plug in and essentially play marketing leader at points of change, and when they need it, but at the scale and size that they need as well. It's sort of a Goldilocks solution. It's just right, meaning often early stage companies either don't have the funding, or even more so, don't really need a full-time C-suite executive. They may not need a 24/7 CMO, CFO, etc. But they know they need that expertise, either situationally, like when they're about to try to raise capital, or to just build the groundwork, build at least the foundation for marketing or other capacities. And so I will often be asked to come in and either be the first CMO, or plug into a company that has some marketing but hasn't really developed it from the top down in any kind of visionary way. Or frankly, I've worked with billion-dollar companies and helped overcome specific situations, challenges, projects. Um, so again, across the spectrum. Um, my company has, as you mentioned, the full C-suite. So in fact, we began as tech CFO because 20 years ago, our brilliant founders recognized that many early stage companies, especially tech companies, would be built by a brilliant entrepreneur, a genius engineer, somebody who had a great product idea, and those folks would build a team that would be scrappy and smart, and uh, you know start to get somewhere, but they realized they didn't have that CFO to help them develop a cap table, or lead a capital raise, and had experience at those various important points of inflection. And so they needed this idea of this fractional CFO. And so for 10 years, our CFOs would get embedded in companies, and CEOs would say, gee, I really like the way this works. Do you have a fractional CMO, or do you have a fractional CTO or something? So we built out the practice to include all of, pretty much the entire C-suite.
Well, what's interesting about the fractional perspective is that you get to see and understand and work with a number of different B2B companies. And so one of the things I wanted to ask right off the bat is, when you're brought in, what are the problems you're typically asked to be solving? And are those the problems that you ultimately are solving? Or are you expanding their definition of their problem and what they're trying to do?
That's a great question. And I think the answer is, all of the above. um, you know, Often the need is not well defined. Sometimes companies, most times companies don't necessarily know what they don't know. They know that they need help. So sometimes it's literally, I'm working on a project now where I'm literally the first marketing person to touch this company. So they know, we need to begin to build. We need to begin to build you know, our market, our outward external facing. We need to build our story. We need to begin to drive inbound demand. We need to create tools for customer or patient onboarding, et cetera. So they know that, and so this is a comprehensive. Let's take a look at this company and begin. And we need to start somewhere. And often, that's another conversation, Steve. But often it's like, hey, look, let's do one thing at a time. At least rather than try a shotgun. Let's be precise and begin somewhere and then build from there. But that's another conversation. But other times, you're brought in because there's a lot of growth and the folks dealing with things are straining, and maybe the chief revenue officer is also in charge of marketing, and whether or not that's a strength of theirs or not, they're also driving pipeline and trying to close deals, and they're actually beginning to do some marketing, and they just don't really know how to create create structure, purpose, be more intentional around it. It becomes, it's mostly a transactional or tactical kind of approach. So they know they need some sort of leadership to help drive things. But sometimes it's like, hey, we don't have enough demand, and then I'll go in and recognize there are other issues that are maybe in the way of just driving pipeline. And I would say to you that almost always there's some sort of lack of clarity around who your customer is, what their needs are, and what the promise is that you really are building. And so it almost always starts with some work in the area of customer focused brand storytelling. And I know there's this great this great debate between brand and growth, and there are these two different sides of and look, we don't have time to build our brand. We just need growth. And I'm here to tell you, and I'm hoping you're gonna nod along with me, but they're not two separate things, and you can't grow without the right idea of who you are as a brand and what your story is and what you're promising. And that, of course, all starts with the customer and customer understanding.
I think it was Gartner that recently wrote about that the transition of the CMO to be the more of a chief customer officer, right? That the ultimate focus and a reliance on somebody internally having to be the voice of the customer and representing them in everything that they do. So it's interesting because, a lot of what you're talking about here is the foundation before the actual execution, right? So when you actually start rolling the campaigns out, and you and I were talking before we hit the record button about content and its importance in marketing the business and portraying the brand. Just tell us a little bit about what you think about the importance of content and how you think about it and deploy it and recommend it to your clients.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we use words that become like almost meaningless because they're just thrown around everywhere. And content probably is one. Are we talking emails? Are we talking what are we really talking? But at the end of the day, I do think content is the oxygen for any B2B brand. And you said campaigns, and like I almost don't even want to think in terms of campaigns. It's about what is the customer's interaction with your company. How do they customer journey, and how do they shop a category, and how do they interact with you as a brand? And that tends to be, or should be, the content that you create that helps them begin to think about you as a potential solution to their problems. And content, people probably think it's it's shorthand for I don't have money to spend on paid media, so let's just write some stuff. But content at the end of the day isn't cheap. It requires a lot of resource time at a minimum, and then also obviously there's cost to implement it. But I hope that people aren't thinking content is a shortcut.
Well, and I mean, traditionally, the way that things work is, marketing tries to create these MQLs, right? That then are qualified and ultimately, turn into an SQL. But how do you get MQLs? You get form fills, right? You get, and people that are desiring content. And I love the analogy because it evokes so much emotion that the content is the oxygen that you breathe, right? It is your introduction. It is the reason why somebody wants to start engaging and interacting with your company before they even know that they need you as a solution, right?
Right,
This
right.
is bringing you top of mind with buyers because not every buyer is in the market. So when you talk about that customer journey, maybe tell us a little bit more about this idea of content as oxygen and how it's used across the customer journey, because I think there's use cases all along, right? That oxygen
Definitely.
is needed at every level.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. I mean, your point is dead on that. I think it was Gartner as well that said 95% of your customer base when you're interacting or engaging with them the first time is 95% are not in market, which means they're not shopping, they're not, it's in the back of their minds, if at all, uh, your solution. So you have to begin to just get on their radar somehow. And how do you do that? It's by caring and knowing and demonstrating, validating your expertise in areas that they care about. So again, it always starts with the customer. What are their interests? What are they feeling a need to keep up to date on? How do they stay ahead of their own competition or stay valuable to their own company? And then, what might be lurking in the back of their minds that you could trigger that gets them either a little itchier about thinking about a solution or gets them wondering if they currently have the right systems or products or solutions. So it starts with it always starts with the consumer. So I guess if you want to use the analogy of oxygen, it's kind of breathing a little oxygen onto that pilot light to make it a little warmer, make it a little more of a fire.
And something you didn't say, and what you were just talking about there, which is very, very important, why you didn't say that, is all the reasons you just gave for those 95% of the people that are actually not in the market to buy right now. Is if your content then is 95% about product and features, feature benefit, and that's going to be white noise to them. Because if they're not in the market, content then has to be the long game, right? Marketing is the long game, because you don't know when they're going to be in the market. But then if you're only hitting them with things that matter at the tail end of the buyer's journey, where they're trying to decide amongst the consideration set, what do I do? If that's what you keep hitting people, 95% of the people with, it's just going to go, they're just going to delete, right? It's going to be
Correct.
wasted effort on them. But that's, I think, the conundrum. Right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I talked about a shortcut before. It's absolutely not a shortcut. Content marketing. I mean, the thing is, most people, to your point, do use it as let's just put an ebook up there or a white paper, get some MQLs, get some downloads, and then hit them with sales messages. And that's 99% likely to fail. You'll get a couple of wins out of it. So it's not 100%, but to understand content marketing is to see it is a little bit the long game, like you said. It is a build over time, but it's also a responsibility. You take responsibility to use this power wisely by adapting to your customers a timetable and cadence and needs versus, it's just like, it's whatever, it's like dating or something. You don't meet somebody and say, let's get married, or will you go out on dates? Like, do you like me? Do we understand each other? Do we have the similar, values? Can you, whatever, see yourself talking to me further? And if you're not in the market, you're essentially not ready to get married. And so jumping in with buy this product too early, it's, at least off-putting, and at worst, you get canceled as a company who I don't want to do business with.
And something that you said there, I love the dating analogy, because you tend to date people that you're compatible with, that you're like mind with. And a gentleman that was on our last episode of the podcast talked about, marketing. A big part of what we do is to really extol what we believe, right? What's our point of view in this industry? And we're going to attract people that are like us, right? And that's the kind of like that dating, right? You're not going to, you're not going to be on the opposite side of the political scale, spectrum, and date the same person, and we tend to have relationships in business and professionally with those that we feel like we're of like mind with. And
Definitely.
And that's, I think, when you talk about building that relationship, that's what came to mind. But tell me a little bit. You've written a lot. You've published, I think, 40 different articles just in Martech publications. But one of them was interesting, and the title, and I love it because I know you did this because it's intriguing, but it's true, right? And literally just calling your content marketing thought leadership doesn't make it so. Tell us, what's the idea behind that headline in that article that we need to learn?
Well, I think there's a lot of misconceptions or, purposeful fudges around content marketing. I have to tell you a funny aside. I was working as fractional CMO of a company that wasn't really doing a lot of marketing or almost any marketing, but there was somebody I was told to meet who was leading lead gen. So in my mind, I'm thinking lead gen. Okay, they're building some, gated assets that and what it was they were calling lead gen was product heavy outbound emails to a list of people who hadn't opted into anything. And I'm like, okay, so lead gen, and they would send out, I don't know, 10,000 emails and get a lead, 2 leads. I mean, I was like, this is not lead gen. In fact, you're turning people off. I think the same thing about content marketing. We're doing content marketing, and it's an email that says, you have this problem, we have this product. That's not content marketing. So, I was talking about basically, the way I approach content marketing, which is, again, start with your customer, understand that customer, understand the things they care about, like I was saying before, the things that they are important to them, and understand the things they read and are seeking to learn. And so that's why any content marketing plan needs to begin with personas. It's sounds silly to say, of course, everybody's going to say yes, of course, but I would guarantee 9 out of 10 don't. And that persona needs to really, again, understand their challenges, their needs, and then of course how your product category fits into that. And then the role your content will play. I think it was some pundit who talks about beginning with a content mission. Everybody's doing content, so what's the mission of your content? And that should be, and oh, by the way, just to say you're doing content marketing isn't a bad thing if it's not elevated to the point of, quote, thought leadership. It's a good start. It's just thought leadership begins to create, it's saying, I'm really about my audience. I have a new and novel take to it. I'm not just curating what already exists and saying the same thing, and it demonstrates your very relevant expertise in areas that they care a lot about. So I think it needs to start with the customer. So develop personas. It's critical you create a journey, some sort of journey map that says this is how this person engages with your category, shops for solutions in that category, and the various steps they take, content they engage with, and again, what the role of your content at each phase of that journey is, because it will evolve. And then very critical, and I thought this with regards to the thing you mentioned about who was on your podcast last week, is create content pillars. And what I like to do is, build a Venn diagram, on one side being what's critical, the critical key, aspects of your brand. What are the things that you care about and are, demonstrably different about your brand. And then on the other side, of course, what are the key needs and what's important to your customer, and where that overlap is. So you talked about, this person who says their content needs to be about showing why they exist or what they care about. That's a huge part, but it has to align with what the customer is. There's that overlap. Otherwise, I've written before about, your company purpose. If your company purpose isn't built around what others care about, you could be waving a flag, but you got no one following you. So it's important to make sure you develop those content pillars around that overlap between, your beliefs and what's important core aspects of your brand and those needs of your customer.
So I'm going to ask you a question about the intersection of two things: a company's brand, right? Their promise, their trust mark, their content. Now, it's been written up quite a bit that, we just talked about it. We're writing for people that they're trying to learn, they're trying to be educated, they're trying to stay ahead in their industry. That may have nothing to do with your specific product or your technology or what you are doing. And so part of, do you agree with this statement or do you disagree, and why? Part of your brand is your unique point of view on the industry, which is a huge part of your thought leadership strategy. Because you can read and read and read all the studies about the B2B buyers. What they want is they want their companies and their salespeople to be industry category experts, trusted advisors, right? That means that they have a bigger idea and perspective of how this industry is and how that company they're talking to, that prospect, that lead, what their opportunities are. So how important is thought leadership and the company's brand itself?
Well, I agree with what you said, and to answer the question, yes, point of view is very important, because one, it makes for better content to have a point of view versus just expository, blah blah blah. But two, and I'll flip it almost upside down, I think the point of view you have on the category should absolutely shape the solutions you have created. In other words, if you believe the category is broken and needs something, then your solutions will clearly be demonstrable. They are different, or solve some key problem that you believe the industry is facing. And in fact, having a point of view that isn't manifested in actual products or services is worthless. Again, this is why I think greenwashing exists. Companies go out and say, we care about X or Y, reducing our carbon footprint or whatever, and they still make plastic bottles of X, Y, and Z. Like, you can say anything, you can have a point of view about anything, but unless it's then the why, the classic, the why that you exist, thus then create solutions to attack that, it's going to be meaningless. So all the way through to, so then should you be, writing about content marketing about your point of view? Absolutely, because it's almost in a way your why. Why do these things even exist in the first place? Why have we created, something? In fact, so I'll give you an example. I'm working with a company that is that works in the ultrasound product area, and we're developing some content for department heads of certain departments, and what we recognize is these people are key buyers of ultrasound products, but they have all kinds of different challenges. They've got to motivate their staff. They've got to, their staff is made up of doctors who are smart and passionate, but also stretched. And then it's also, they're also dealing with the administration, and they have budgets and need to demonstrate ROI, and it's tough to ask for, so we understand these challenges. But what we're developing some content to say, hey, guess what? The price of this unit is only one aspect of the value and the cost. You need to rethink cost, because there are hidden costs with regards to buying the raw ultrasound, and there are also hidden or missing ROI drivers like revenue opportunities, but you're not thinking about it that way. So this is like a point of view this company has about, that's why they've developed these solutions. But it's the content marketing has to, it's got a point of view, but it also, the goal of it is to almost grab these folks by the lapels and say, you didn't think of it this way. It's almost a behavior trying to change some behavior. So it's a high bar, but it's also it's easy to do when it's really deep in your DNA as a company.
Well, but if not all their competitors are talking that way, but they're adding that kind of value, and they're saying, really, there's three other considerations you need to be thinking about, right? When you're making an important decision like this,
Right.
that is good. So if you just had, and if you could just break it down for us, what is your definition, and what is the difference between thought leadership and content marketing?
Well, I mean, I was leading to it before, where I was saying, what are the most important aspects of your content marketing? So, first of all, it's got to be audience focused, customer focused, and not company or technology focused. At the end of the day, we all recognize that marketing is a commercial enterprise, and that we're all in sales. At the end of the day, our job, our role, our drive needs to grow the company by, increasing uptake of the products and services. So I'm not hiding that, but content has to elevate above that to engage someone, beyond the actual products and services you sell, at least initially. Then, of course, connect that story you're telling, whether it's over time or within the conversation, to connect the solutions you have to this conversation, that's non-branded initially. So, one is, thought leadership has to be about the customer, the audience, their needs, their their challenges, and understanding of what they really are interested in. And then the second thing, and I mentioned this as well, it's got to have some novelty, or uniqueness, or, as you called it, point of view. Otherwise, if you're just saying the same old spin, maybe it gets you into the ballpark, but it's not going to bring you home, so to speak.
Yeah, in fact,
Um,
most buyers, B2B buyers, don't think, like 70% of them think that the thought leadership content that they read isn't worth their time reading it. And sellers are the same way, right? So, I love that you wrote that article with a lot of emotion, in terms of, okay, I need this thing called thought leadership, but just calling my content thought leadership isn't going to get it done, right? Because thought leadership content can be a lot harder. As companies, we know all about our products, right? We know, I mean, we could talk ad nauseum about our products, and that's our technologies, and that's our comfort zone, right? But thought leadership can take us out of our comfort zone, right?
Yeah,
And
for
having
sure.
that point of view and having it be unique and having it meaningful, right? So my own personal view is that's why a lot of thought leadership content doesn't get created, or when it does get created, it's not very good because it almost takes an expertise that most companies don't have or haven't put a lot of time and effort into it. And that's understanding the industry and the trends and the thought leadership that's happening and what's the point of view already. What are the luminaries in the industry saying? How is it molding and affecting? Where's this industry going to be in 2 years? Those are the kinds of things that are, fantastic for thought leadership. And so I just love that you called it out, that like it's a very different thing. In fact,
Yeah.
but it's blended. Would you agree that most companies wouldn't really know the difference between thought leadership and content marketing, that it's all just kind of part of content marketing, right?
Yeah, I would agree. I think, I've been at companies where people say, yeah, we've got a thought leadership plan, and it really is just a different way to distribute product and brand content. Having said that, and I do obviously agree that thought leadership, when done right, is content marketing, to the nth power. It's much more powerful and much more effective, and also more harder to do. But I do think it's also probably just a part of your content marketing programming, meaning if you've plotted the customer journey, there are moments to have conversations about your product and how it
Absolutely.
solves things, and compare it to others,
Absolutely.
and show how current customers have enjoyed it, and case studies around their successes. These are all obviously
Yeah,
product kind of brand kind of things, but that's part of a thorough content marketing program as you get move through the purchase journey or down the funnel and such. So so I think you're right. It's just blurred that people think all of it's thought leadership, or that any content marketing is thought leadership, and it is not.
so Michael, if you had words of wisdom for the senior marketing people and CEOs that are watching this podcast now, what kind of wisdom, based on all your experience, would you want to leave us with here?
Wow, that's heavy.
I teed it up. There you go.
And you also said watching. Are they watching or just listening?
Either way, this is both on YouTube and over traditional audio podcast channels.
Got it. I think I'd say some maybe classic aphorisms, which you've heard a lot, which is, know your customer, understand them, be customer focused, not technology, not product, not solution focused. Um, that's there's no substitute for that. That will drive everything you do, say. It'll drive your pitch decks. It'll drive your salespeople. It'll drive your capital raises. It'll drive, obviously every bit of marketing you do, because without it, your message falls cold. Um, Secondly, I would say, beware of shortcuts. Everybody's looking for the fastest way to X, or how can I tweak my growth marketing program to get, to drive, to drive growth rates. How do I, and how can I use lead gen to increase pipeline? And I think you need to, you need to be more methodical, more rigorous, and know that true long-term growth is requires a foundation and a plan, and may take time to build over time. And then the third thing I would say, especially to early stage companies, and what I find is, so many of them try to do a million things. You'll look at websites, you'll look at marketing decks, you'll look at pitch decks that say, we're good for uh, these people, or these people, or these people. Start with one, start with some fundamentals, build a foundation, and grow from there. So if talking about content marketing, if that seems daunting, well, you shouldn't do everything at once. You shouldn't be on every platform. You shouldn't, do webinars if you're strapped for, manpower and resources. Start and build and scale from there. Frittering your energy and your resources and your time across too many disparate directions is also a recipe for not having any impact anywhere.
Well, Michael, thank you very much. I'm definitely taking away a lot from this conversation. And I actually have been in this business for a long time, and I never thought of the idea of content as oxygen. And I just think that's just rich in its analogy. And I don't believe that most B2B companies understand that content and being a content producer and publisher is one of their needs to be one of their core competencies. And so I think that kind of just underlies that in terms of you have to have it to breathe. So
right.
Thank you very much for coming on board. And if anybody wants to get a hold of you, where do they get a hold of you, Michael?
Shoot me an email at michael.baer@techcxo.com, or link in with me. Love to speak to any of you and or connect.
Well, fantastic. Thank you very much for being on the program.
Thank you, Steve. Great talking to you.
All right, so I'll cut there. That was fantastic. That was great.
Awesome. I didn't know we were also supposed to be looking at the camera. I hope I wasn't.
Oh, no, don't worry about it, because it just showed you were very deep in thought in what you were saying and very intentional in what you were saying. So yeah, no worries. Everything went perfect. It's fun. It's fun to kind of geek out about what we do on a regular basis, and just and riff and talk on it a little bit. But
That was awesome. I enjoyed it too.
well, fantastic. Well, give me a few weeks, but I will send you a link, and I will send you, social posts and different things that you can share, and we'll make the most out of it for sure.
Great. Looking forward to it.
All right.
Good meeting you.
Michael.
All right.
Thanks for coming on.
Take care.